Can we walk this road together? I can't travel it alone. I need someone beside me to help me find my way back home. 'Cause this world is full of anger, and I've been walking through some pain. So if we walk this road together, we can find our way back home again.
In the memorial, the bookcase behind the bronze of Anne Frank is ajar. The doorway to the annex is an open door for us to make and share a better future for all. Quoting from Reverend Dr. Nancy Taylor, one of the memorial's visionary founders, that was the last line in an Idaho Statesman article published on August 17, 2002. It was the day after the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial had been dedicated to the public. I like that imagery of the memorial having an open door. For over 17 years, it has been opening hearts and minds. Even under the cover of darkness 2 years ago, when hate walked through that door and used words to attack members of our community, the door has remained open. Rather than shout at the darkness, the heart of our community chose to confront the hate with hope. Hope that the damage caused when the words were tagged into the travertine could be repaired. Hope that the damage caused to select features could be replaced. And hope that the memorial's message would not shrink from its responsibility to share a better future for all of us. Welcome to the first episode of Voices of Idaho. Produced by the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights in Boise, my name is Dan Prinzing. The Wassmuth Center is the builder and the home of the memorial. There is no other Anne Frank memorial in the United States. We are one of the few places in the world in which the entire text of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is carved in stone for public display. And the memorial is recognized as an international site of conscience. Charged with developing educational programming that complements the physical site, our mission is to promote respect for human dignity and diversity through education. As one online reviewer posted, the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial, situated in downtown Boise, provides a powerful reminder of Anne Frank's inspirational faith in humanity. And on days when I need a little peace and yearn for a little hopefulness, I sure am glad it's here. Well, welcome progress has been made since the late Bill Wassmuth first stood up to bigotry and hatred in northern Idaho. But the need for human rights education grows with every new generation. And today's headlines only remind us there's much more to be done. I read from Carl Glickman's book, Holding Sacred Ground. Our ideal of public education is one in which students are engaged in reflection and action that constantly encourages them to move America toward a truer democratic society. A democratic society, we believe, is one in which people of all races, cultures, religions, genders, and sexual orientations have access to what the American founders called unalienable rights. The Wassmuth Center remains committed to instruction and resources that foster civility, civic-mindedness, open-mindedness, and compassion. Civility, treating other people with respect, regardless of whether or not one likes them or agrees with their viewpoints. Being willing to listen to other points of view, not being insulting when arguing with others. Civic-mindedness, concern for the well-being of one's community. Open-mindedness, willingness to consider other points of view, and compassion, concern for the well-being of others, especially for the less fortunate. Within the memorial, we find an artistic rendering of one of the center's core programs, the Spiral of Injustice. Designed by Idaho metal artist Ken McCall, the statue is titled The Other. We define the other as an individual who is perceived as not belonging, as being different in some fundamental way. The other often is targeted because of association with a group based on class, race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, ability, or religious preference. On the statue, the spiral of injustice wraps around the other from neck to ankles. The spiral illustrates how injustice devolves within a community. Its first level is language, when the other is targeted through word choice, name-calling, ridicule, jokes, belittling, even stereotyping. Once dehumanized, that individual is subject to avoidance, discrimination, violence, and even elimination. I often question when the other, the them in our community, becomes us, as we value and recognize the worth of each individual. While by definition the other is labeled because of association with a group, I firmly believe that we recognize individual dignity when we begin to see the individual's face and hear the individual's voice. Each episode of the Voices of Idaho will examine the devolution of injustice through one person's story, adding his or her voice to our discussion of the spiral. Each episode will also feature student voice in the form of a poem submitted to the Center's annual poetry contest.
This is Fiona Martinez's Empathy. Kids cry on the playground, wails and shrieks, ugly and piercing. Once I would weep when I heard pain like that. I saw suffering and I felt it too. Was I born like this? My empathy brought me misery even in the happiest times. But they screamed, moaned, cried out, and I wept, quite unlike a child. Tears sliding down my face, drying to my cheeks before they could drop to the floor. I was a slave to empathy once. Now I see pain, hear pain, feel pain, and I want to cure it. I don't cry anymore. I feel more than sadness. I feel anger at the injustice, and I feel love. Was I born like this? Did I learn it? People tell me it's okay to cry, but I don't want to. Because now I can do more than I could then. Maybe I've learned enough to mend things with my empathy.
Through the voices, we will, as Gandhi advocated, make injustice visible. We will also illustrate that the spiral of injustice can be interrupted by an upstander's words and deeds. We framed our concept of the upstander while working with Rose Bill, a Holocaust survivor who spent the last 10 years of her life telling her story to classrooms and communities throughout the state. Rose was 11 and living in Frankfurt, Germany when Hitler came to power. She talked about the bystanders who said and did nothing while she was being tormented or targeted for being the other in her community. It was in their silence that the bystanders condoned injustice. That by doing or saying nothing, they were sending a message that injustice is acceptable. Upstanders are those who recognize a wrong and take action to make it right. We define an upstander by 4 qualities. First is a defender, an advocate and a supporter of human rights and dignity. Second, someone who recognizes the need for empathy, dignity, and compassion. Third, a person who acts when witnessing inequality, injustice, and oppression. And fourth, someone who recognizes, engages, and empowers others to confront injustice. Each episode will also highlight the acts of an upstander, what he or she is doing to interrupt the spiral. More than 80 quotes are carved into the stone of the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial, some of them from Anne's diary and others from human and civil rights advocates throughout history. Earlier I referenced one of the 2 Gandhi quotes in the memorial. But when I'm asked about what the Wassmuth Center stands for, I always include another quote I read in the memorial. One thought from Confucius' teachings. What you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. That idea is what the memorial reinforces. and it's why the Wassmuth Center's programming is used in classrooms and communities throughout the state. I believe that's what we stand for. And with intentionality, I also believe that ideal can build a community. During each episode, we'll also ask the featured voice to identify his or her favorite quote in the memorial. I think in bringing together the Voices of Idaho on this platform, we will continue to echo, not in my town, not in my state, Idaho is too great for hate. Thank you for joining us today.
My friend, with you right here beside me, we'll find our home with peace.